I was
I don't
thinking
know this thing.
you might end up wearing the white hoodie.
The hoodie I left, man, because summer started in Dubai.
Yeah, correct.
So thick and it's too hot.
Yeah. But over there, it's like inside the studio, it's cool, right? Like AC alarm put.
It's you don't need a hoodie for it. It's comfortable. 23 level.
Yeah. Great. Should we get going?
Yeah, man. Sure.
Oh my God, Mr. Adi in the house, baby. I'm so excited. And dude, I was thinking about it just this morning. Just over a year ago is when you had come on the podcast last year. Just over a year.
Is it? Okay.
And then obviously I was super excited to be releasing it as soon as possible because I had enjoyed that session so much, and then I really wanted the rest of the world to also experience what I did. And that, I have to be honest, that is definitely one of my most favorite podcasts. And then I learned a lot, and you were super patient, and asked you a lot of things, I know, but I apologize again. But this is just that me being curious and wanting to learn as much as possible, that's all. And buddy, and I have to be honest on also saying that I feel very blessed to have been in this journey, to have had some amazing friends like yourselves in this journey, and sir is also very much aware about it. And then I just feel blessed, and I just want to say thank you for supporting my journey. That's all I can say.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, and something cool happened last year in podcast 1.0 when you were in the session. Sir gave you a call, and it was like a blessing, as you might remember. And I know for the fact that that phone call was about something related to the Expo, obviously, and that was the journey. I mean, the journey had sort of started then, or probably much before that phone call too, quite obviously. And here you are sitting in one of the coolest studios ever, and I regret that I have not had the opportunity to visit yet, but I'm reliving the experience of you sitting there. And that's why I've been very adamant about the fact that you should do the podcast from the studio, just so that I can get a glimpse of the studio which says by ARRahman, sir. And it gives me immense pleasure, man, that you accepted to do it in the studio, and you made a little dream come true. That's what I can say. So the journey has been great for you. I'm sure it must have been one of the most memorable journey for you in terms of building one of the coolest studios. Talk me through about it, buddy. I'm sure you've spent quite a few months in Dubai, and you're still in Dubai. And back then, when you went to Dubai, I think a couple of months after the podcast 1.0 was released, you left for Dubai, and it was just a construction site. I remember seeing those pictures. There was nothing, and now it's one of the world's best studios. The guests who have come on the podcast since recently, in the last couple of weeks, like Hesham, for example, just 2 days ago, Hesham Abdul Wahab, he was blown away with the studio. He said that. And then Amit Trivedi had also visited, as you know, and he sent me a message saying that this is one of the best studios ever. And he said Rahman sir has created a world-class studio. So, dude, tell me about this journey, man. Right from the point where sir had a certain vision, and you joined him to make that vision possible. I'm excited.
Let me put my phone on silent. Sorry. Okay, so thank you for having me again, man. A year later, things have changed drastically in my life. And as you said rightly, I've been in Dubai now for nearly 7 months. And so the call that did come during our earlier podcast was definitely related. I don't recall what, but it was related to the studio where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
The journey of making the studio kind of started a little before the pandemic.
Correct.
So a little more than 2 years back now. And There was so Her Highness Reem Al Hashmi, who's the force behind Expo and the studio. She had a vision of collaborating with AR Sir and having a world class facility in Dubai. Dubai does have a few recording facilities, but I think it definitely seeked out for more, because the way they're growing now, the way they're expanding, the way that all the cultures are coming and melting here, the way arts is growing, the way music is growing in this, and it's incredible. The last few months, I've seen every single artist perform at Expo, both Indian artists, Filipino artists, American artists, African. It's unbelievable. No one can ever imagine the kind of music and art that we've been exposed to the last 6 months, and literally for free. Like, you just buy a ticket to the Expo and you get to see hundreds of performances by world class artists in the Expo.
Yeah.
I think the Dubai dream of making this the sort of world's next biggest hub for art and music and commerce and whatnot really culminated beautifully at the Expo. And one of the reasons why we have the studio is to take that forward into legacy. So we try to not just end with the Expo, but ensure now that this music thrives and we have a place to explore, record, create within Dubai. We've had really big musicians come to the studio, Coldplay being one of our first clients, apart from AR, of course, and multiple other clients. And everybody's been quite blown away with the studio. So I think Sir's vision was quite grand. He wanted a studio that could do anything, serve anybody, welcome anyone, any kind of music can be created. There are multiple ways we could use the studio. And so his vision, of course, he explained to me a lot how he would like things to happen. And we worked with that basic idea and created something, Firdaus Studio by A.R.Rahman at Expo. So this is what we have. At some point, I hope you do come and maybe take a video and share it to your fans. And so, yeah.
Wow. And so it's taken almost 2 years to build.
So what happened is we started designing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then during the design phase, the pandemic hit. And then there was a lot of unsurety about various things across the world, including the studio, including the Expo. People were trying to refigure how life would proceed. And hence we had a pause. I think the whole world had a pause for almost a year, trying to figure out the new world. And we were waiting on that pause to kind of take shape patiently, not losing hope. And after about a year, people came back together and we continued our design process, completed the design process sometime last year, January, February. And we started constructing in Feb last year.
Right.
Breaking ground in Feb last year. And the actual building started in June or July only.
Correct.
And we completed so the real construction started in June and we completed before, by November end, we were ready.
Right.
So it was, that was the timeline to construct the whole studio.
Right.
We are in the handover phase now, where we're just fixing, there's always small rough edges that we have to sort out. So we are in that phase. We're training the new management to take over and, run it as a commercial studio for anyone and everyone.
Wow. Right. And you mentioned design, right? Like, what exactly happens in the design? I mean, more from the exterior as and as well as the interior, obviously, and also along the lines of what the walls and all the minutest detail, I take it, right?
Yeah. So this there has been a lot of forces behind this studio. So Expo did provide us with the architect from their side and contractors from their side, and Expo also had a team from within Expo who would help tie in those contractors and architects with our design criteria. So we developed a design criteria. Basically, the team was my acoustician partner called Rollins and myself. So Rollins and myself, with continuous interaction with Mr. Rahman, would keep coming up with various facets of the design, including the building, including the layout of all the rooms, including the requirement of each space, what kind of sound tonal space are we looking for, what kind of reverb time we want, what are the use cases of these spaces, the entries, the exits, the emergency, the fire systems. And my core in this whole concept was, of course, the audio video part of it.
Yeah.
There's a grand plan, and as well in detail is the whole audio video, like putting across several technologies together to work seamlessly. Our studio is we have one big live room. The live room also doubles as a mini cinema theater, like a preview theater. So there's a Dolby Atmos speaker system in the live room. We can pull in some cinema chairs. We have those, and we can actually watch a film that we're working on in this room where I'm sitting right now.
Wow.
In Dolby Atmos. We could also perform small concerts, casual, cozy concerts within the live room. We have a PA, we have the stage.
Right.
We could shoot because we have these special cameras, PTZ cameras. We have really cool lights, a truss that goes, changes the height.
Right.
We have all the show lights that are controlled by DMX. So we could actually transform the space into a shooting kind of funky, zone. So the space is multi-use. You could really figure out various ways to use that. There are multiple screens in multiple rooms. All the computers and all the cameras can be accessed from any room. So it's not dedicated or stuck to the position I'm sitting now. If you choose to record from within the live room and you want to move a system there, it just takes one Ethernet cable and we're ready. It's very flexible. This whole Ethernet-based systems, Dante systems that we have installed everywhere, makes the space really flexible in the way each and every different artist wants to use it. And there's so much scope. There are use cases that people have used the space for that I didn't even design it for. I didn't think, oh wow, you could do this. But since I provided the facilities, clients would ask, hey, can I do this? And we figured out, yes, you can.
Like what?
So basically the other day we wanted a system, Mr. Rahman wanted a system to sit inside within the orchestra and record from there. Usually you sit in a different room.
Right.
And he was so excited to be able to do that he's sitting right within the musicians, but actually recording on a system. He gave him headphones and he was part of that instead of being detached from it in a different control room in a typical environment. So there's quite many things that people can do, and he's been so excited with these lights, and he's been shooting really cool videos. There's something called the Firdaus Studio sessions that we've been doing, poems and stuff. You can catch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So a lot of firsts, I believe, for the studio to be able to use it in really various ways.
Right.
So the design included all these aspects: the acoustics, the rooms. He has an office here inside the facility. We had to think about prayer rooms, restrooms. We had to think about how the cafeteria will look, how the lounges will look. We have these PlayStations going on in all the lounges, and uh, a lot of minute things that we had to conjure up
Hmm.
uh, to make this an exciting facility. So,
Wow. Sounds so exciting for sure. And may I ask, how many rooms, like, um, at a high level?
so
Because
it's
you're talking about cafeteria,
technically
lounges.
technically it's one big studio. So
Correct.
there's this control room where I'm sitting in now.
Yeah.
There are two ISO booths on either side
May I ask
where
what is
we
an
can
ISO?
ISO booth is where we can split in either the vocalist or a choir or
Okay.
a guitarist or some instrument, a flautist, any solo.
Mm.
We can put them in those ISO booths and record them here.
Right.
Downstairs, behind me, is the large scoring hall, which
Okay.
can fit about 80 musicians at one point.
Wow.
And that scoring hall has further two ISO booths, little bigger.
Okay.
So if you want to split the percussions or the drums away and isolate them, there's two more rooms for that. And right below, so we are on the first floor right now. Right below this room on the ground floor is a kind of a smaller control room,
Mm.
which looks into the scoring stage. And it's not nearly as elaborate as this room.
Mm.
It's got a system, you can listen there and you can work from there. It's kind of a cross between a control room and a lounge, and
Right.
people can relax and work at the same time from that room.
Right.
So these are the main technical rooms. Apart from this, we have two green rooms, two lounges, Mr. Rahman's office. There's a management office. There's the video control PCR, and there's some prayer rooms. There's the entry foyer.
Mm.
There's a large storage room because we store a lot of mic stands and instruments. We have all the orchestral instruments with us, so we have to store that. Then there's server rooms. There's two server rooms on the facility
Right.
with all the equipment racks and all the network points going on there.
Right.
Yeah,
Nice.
we have parking at the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued by the fact that you said server rooms, right? Like what servers? Like, are those Windows servers, or what is it?
So actually, we call them machine rooms. All the equipment that runs the equipment behind me, the brains of all the stuff, the brains of there's a lot of interfaces, audio interfaces. There's a lot of patch bays.
Yeah.
There's these what we call as master clocks, which synchronize all the systems together.
Right.
All the hard disks, all the networking switches, and all the distribution, how we distribute the audio, all the Dante switches, all the Dante network, the video networks.
Mm.
So it's quite extensive. We have about 10 or 11 racks filled with equipment,
Wow.
maintained at a low temperature always. And
Right. And
Yeah.
since you mentioned server room, again, this is me wearing the technical hat. Is So there is no cloud storage as such, right? So it's everything in the house. There's nothing that goes out. Am I right?
no, we do have a cloud storage.
Right.
So we have a server that does. So we have three copies of all the data. One
Right.
is, of course, your master, what we're working on,
Yeah.
and then we've done a RAID 1+0 on those servers, so it's doing a
Yeah.
duplicate on half the drives, and then it's real time also writing to the one of the cloud services that we have prescribed.
Right.
So there's the main, then there's a redundancy,
Correct.
and then there's a cloud backup.
Wow. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm going digging technically, but is there some sort of a daily backup practice or something like that, or a job that runs to ensure everything is backed up?
I think so. The idea, the plan is there definitely, but
Okay.
we've hardly been open for a month now,
Yeah.
and there's still a lot of practices that are being implemented. The engineers are getting up to speed. So while the plan is existing, I think the execution will take another couple of weeks for that stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
Understand. Right. And you very specifically mentioned about the Ethernet cables and stuff. So it's obviously because of the reliability of the network, right? And
reliability of the network and flexibility of being able to run any system from anywhere, watch any display from anywhere, send audio over Ethernet,
Right.
that is Dante, to any place. And so it's a really, I mean, network has made things so easy in the audio world and the video world.
Right.
Not easy is one thing, but very flexible. The choices are, otherwise it was always point to point, but now it's like a star network of stuff that you can start anywhere, end anywhere.
Right.
But traditionally studios were just point to point. If you take an audio cable from your laptop and you go to your speaker, you can do nothing more. It's going to the speaker and that's about it. Whereas now you can send it to headphones, multiple speakers, multiple computers outside the studio. It's like really different rooms.
And with almost no latency.
No latency.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
In the music world, we can't work with latency because music is bound by time, right? You have a tempo.
Yeah.
And if your audio is latent, you're going to not follow on time.
Right.
So that's we can't have latency in music.
Right. And with obviously the musical that just literally wrapped up just a couple of days ago, or just last week, I think, right? Yeah, maybe 2 weeks ago. Hriday was in the podcast last night, and he obviously mentioned about the surround. How should I put it? The sound in the musical, and I'm sure the mixing for that and everything would have happened here in that studio, right?
So two things have happened. The venue where this music was where the musical was held at Expo.
Yeah.
It had something called the ELISA system.
Right.
It's by L Acoustics. It's a kind of immersive surround sound system. The commercial name for it is ELISA.
Okay.
And there's a special mixing environment for ELISA. So what we did is our sound engineer, one of our senior sound engineers, her name is Eva. Eva mixed along with Hriday the pre-mixes of Y, the musical, in the studio in surround, but then to make it into a ELISA, which would play back in the actual auditorium that they were playing in, it had to go to another studio which has this ELISA system. That studio is on the Expo ground.
Right.
And it was specifically purpose built for anything that happens within that dome.
Right.
And it's not a permanent building. It is going to be dismantled as soon in the next 10 days. And so the ELISA mix was done, final mix was done in that studio, so that it plays in that format within the dome. But what also happened is this studio also has immersive sound, but it's not ELISA, it's called Dolby Atmos. So this studio has Dolby Atmos, and we released Y, the musical's music, on Apple Music day before yesterday. And that is released in Dolby Atmos. And that Dolby Atmos mix happened in the studio.
Wow.
So there was two mixes, one for the dome and one for the Apple Music release.
Right. And also the Spotify.
Yeah,
and
all
Spotify is obviously not Dolby Atmos.
It's stereo. Yeah, so far it's stereo.
Yeah.
All that is mixed here.
Wow.
In the studio.
Right.
By Eva.
Right. And
where I studied, one of the engineers here.
Right. And Resul was also part of the musical, right? Resul Pookutty?
Yes, he was mixing a part of it at the other studio. Yes.
Understand, right? I was just keen to know. Obviously, he has worked at a number of studios, and then here he comes in this world-class studio. And I was just wanting to know what was his initial thoughts and what did he have to say.
Actually, I didn't interact with him on this project.
Okay.
He was working at the other studio. I was building the studio, so
right.
I wasn't actually creatively involved in Y at all. apart from giving them the facility to do so. And Resul didn't work in the studio at all
Right.
for that project.
Right.
So we didn't even barely meet. So we met at a show quickly, but we didn't have time to engage.
Right. And buddy, can you just talk me through what's behind you? I see a lot of screens. So is that every dual screen is one engineer sitting there? Is that how it is? Like what exactly?
Yeah. So basically, what this is the mixing console, of course. And this mixing console has two parts. If you see that side behind me,
Yeah.
the color looks different. It's
Correct.
it's basically a Neve 5088, which is an analog console.
Okay.
And this part is a Avid S6, which is a digital console. So
Right.
I've made kind of a hybrid system here. So we
Okay.
get all the mic inputs through the analog part,
Okay.
but then we do the final mix, the recording, everything else via the Avid S6.
Right.
So it's kind of putting the best of both worlds into one system. The screens are basically, as I spoke to you earlier, we have multiple Pro Tools systems, and we could show up any screen, any computer in any display. The keyboards will follow. We have a very interesting KVM matrix, and so we could pull up anything anywhere.
Yeah.
Not necessary. There's always multiple engineers. It could be the same engineer operating across the screens,
Right.
or if it's a more complex session, then they could have multiple engineers on the session. So we can show cameras, we can show different Pro Tools, Logic, any other thing. We can have it. It's like a video matrix, and anything can come on any of these screens. So
Love it. And is that an iPad onto your left behind you? What the one which is vertically there? Yep, the point your finger
that's not
to.
an iPad. That's part of the Avid S6. Actually.
Right.
It's a master module,
Okay.
and the master module screen as part of the Avid S6.
This is just a layman asking you questions, that's all, who has never seen a studio like this before. And
You should come soon.
am I seeing Windows there? Because I see all those folders.
No, it's a Mac.
Is it a Mac?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, okay. Right. I was just curious, that's all.
Mac has folders too,
I understand, but there is also a reason why I asked this, and I'm sure you and I both know. Sir doesn't quite like too many shortcuts on the desktop, right? Or has it changed?
On the contrary, I'd say his desktop can get pretty messy. Of course, he doesn't like it, but it does get messy sometimes.
Understand. Okay, cool. And Adi, and you've obviously designed and created a lot of studios. Would you say this is your best ever in your
for sure.
journey of
Yeah.
studio design?
Yes, for me, this has been a dream come true. The biggest project that I have worked on so far. I'd call it a legacy for myself. It will always remain I think for now it's going to remain the high point of my career, and I do hope have satisfied everybody's expectations. But yeah, definitely this is the most complex, exciting, and flexible kind of facility that I have designed. We are working on more studios with AR sir right now, completing a 10 studio complex in Bombay for him.
Wow.
It's nearing completion.
Right.
And yeah, let's see how that goes.
Wow. So cool. And you obviously designed a lot of studios, and you've also worked on the Sir Studio in Chennai as well, right? You
Yeah,
have
I've
been part
worked
of that.
in multiple studios of his.
Yeah,
You mean as a sound engineer or as a designer?
as a designer.
Designer, I have no. In Chennai, I have not made any of his rooms. I have designed rooms for his sisters in Chennai.
Right. Okay.
Rahman's personal rooms, I have helped the designer in executing
Understand.
his Chennai rooms, but I haven't designed any of his Chennai rooms. There's some talk about a new room that could be developed at the moment. I don't know.
Okay.
But I haven't designed any of his rooms personally in Chennai.
Right.
I've done all of them in Bombay, the one in Powai and the new one in Andheri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask you was obviously the ones that you have done for Sir prior to this, prior to Firdaus, obviously you would have thought ahead for absolutely all the studios that you would have designed. What did you have to do differently here in Firdaus? Because you're already ahead of things when you're designing or working on a studio for him. And what was the game changer here in this one? I understand that the it's a very large space and heaps of other complexities and stuff like that. But more from, I just wanted to get your perspective on what was that thing which was obviously different from what you have done before.
See, technology keeps changing.
Right.
Everything within the audio world keeps changing, and every time we're building a new studio, we are dealing with newer current technology, which didn't exist at the time of us building any previous studio, be it for AR Sir or anybody else. So we always research everything while building a facility. We're getting a job to design a new room. We always research what's latest out there. At the same time, we have to always balance with costs, because it's easy to pick the best of everything and say, oh, this is my design, but who's going to pay for it? At the end, you have to work within a framework of cost, framework of space, and then yet deliver the best. So now that's where I think, be it this studio or any, the challenge and the way to prove yourself is to be able to balance between cost, space, technology, use cases, and so on. So while the thing within the studio, which is really exciting, as I said, is multiple use cases. So you could use it as a cinema room, you could use it as a live room, you could use it as a concert room, you could use it as a shooting floor, and of course a typical recording studio. And this whole method that you could work from any room within the whole facility, it's just not point to point. The flexibility that we have with this network audio over Dante, that's quite, although Dante itself is not new, but how we have used it, and to the extent we've used it in the studio, I doubt most studios have that. And so exploring all the video systems also within the facility, we could do another use cases. We can do a lot of live streaming from this facility. We have multiple cameras everywhere. We have a control room where we can operate these cameras, and we could live stream anything that we're doing here. It could be education sessions, it could be training, it could be concerts, it could be paid recording sessions also. If somebody is recording and it's an artist you love, we could live stream that, and we can monetize it. So I think it's up to each artist and individual and client who wants to use the space, how they would like to use the space, and think about newer ways that maybe I haven't thought, and come up with their own concepts and ideas. So the flexibility of this space, I think, is new. Is not something every other space is kind of defined roles. But I think here it's a little bit out of the box. So
and from a budget perspective, I take it sky would have been the limit for this one.
No, we had a healthy budget, but I mean, there's a limit. The sky is still a limit, so there is a limit. We can't just go berserk and overboard.
Right.
But we did. Yes, I definitely we had a good budget.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned about Sir's office, right? What does Sir's office consist of? Like office as in obviously not where he records, or is that an office where he actually meets people? What exactly is his office here in
It's an
Firdaus?
office like any other, so it's got all this. He likes this kind of Moroccan furniture that we put. We've got a piano in his office.
Right.
He has a television, a PlayStation 5, a camera for Zoom sessions.
Does he actually
He
play
prays.
PS5?
Amin plays from his office, and he has his personal coffee machine. He prays from that room.
Yeah.
He meets with the clients there. He meets with his friends there. So that's his private space where other people clear of give him his privacy.
Right. And obviously now this Firdaus Studio, the vision has come to life, and it's towards the finish line now, where you have to wrap it up and then make your way back later. And then, what did Sir have to say now that this is done? It's there now. His vision initially and what he had envisaged, and now it's here. Why are you smiling? Is he around or what?
No, he's not around. He is known to be very reserved in his compliments.
Right.
So while I've heard him say good things to other people about this facility, directly to me, I still wait for something.
Okay.
Almost solta, it will be like, oh, this guy is thinking, his head is going to the sky and all. So he is calculated. But definitely I've heard him say good things about the space to many. All the guests who come, as soon as, say, Shankar Mahadevan came in, or Lucky Ali came in, or any of his friends from the industry came in, he did introduce me to them. This is Adi's design, and so on. So that was compliment in itself, and I take that.
Right. And again, now over to you. Now that this is done, one of the pinnacles of your career, can I say that? So far?
Yeah.
And
So
there's
far.
more to come for sure. And
I hope.
and what are the key takeaways for you when you go back into the pre-Dubai life of yours?
I have to come back to reality, because I don't think many people are going to have this kind of budget to build a studio.
Yeah.
So going forward, I have to go back to realistic budgets for studios and work within that. So that's something that's I have to be quite cautious and conscious about, which is fine, which is what I have been used to before this, and so we go ahead with that. Apart from that, I think key takeaways are planning before execution is very important, which we did very, very well here. That's why we were able to build in such a short span.
Yeah.
I'd say in any other country, this studio would take me 2 years to construct.
Wow.
And here we finished it between June to November. So that's
Insane.
half a year,
Wow.
a little more. Anywhere else, 2 to 3 years minimum, no doubt. But that's only because of two things. First, Dubai believes in everything fast. They spring up roads, they spring up the Expo, they spring up buildings in record time. They're known to do that. And also because we did have a solid 2 years of design behind it. So having a solid design on paper, however long it takes, definitely is a good way to go. I think in any scenario, not just a studio, film, a project, an app, whatever it is, don't build on the flow and design on the flow. So design it, pakka it, and then execute.
Right. And just out of curiosity, obviously the design phase started 2 years ago, right? And the tech back then would have been 2 years old then, am I right?
Correct.
So it would have been the latest and the greatest of that time.
Correct.
So you obviously would have had to do a bit of research on what could be ahead in
Yeah.
2 years' time? Is that how you approached it, or
I did approach it for most of the things like that.
right?
Some things, unfortunately, so uh, things like the Apple computers, specifically, it changes every year,
Correct.
sometimes twice a year. And then there's a deadline for me to procure the stuff in the studio. I have to procure it before this date, otherwise, it's not going to get installed.
Correct.
That deadline is well before the studio starts. We have to send, it's a big process in the Expo to
Yeah.
get the purchase orders, get approvals, and the monies, wait for the products. And due to the pandemic, a lot of products were not shipping enough because there was some chip shortage
Correct.
across all electronics.
Correct.
So we had to plan 8 to 9 month delivery periods for a lot of equipment. So now if we plan 8 to 9 month delivery period, we are paying 8 months, 9 months before, getting it 9 months later. That means we are very close to the end of the life cycle of some of the products.
Mm.
So unfortunately, we have this recent new wave of M1s and stuff like that. But when we purchased stuff, it was the big Mac Pro with the Intel, but of course fully spec, maxed out. So things like that I could not negate. But apart from that, a lot of things remain current and
Right.
should
Yeah.
not change too soon. But computers aren't something that we can't do anything about.
Yeah, indeed. And then again, as an extension to that, is this like in a real life scenario in any studio? Will there be an yearly refresh cycle or something where old stuff gets replaced with the newer versions and stuff? Or again, depends
It's not commercially viable to do it yearly.
Right.
You won't make up the money on your existing product within 1 year. It's really difficult. So
Okay.
unless you're passionate and the studio is not your source of income, if this you can't do it. You can't update yearly. But once in 3 years is more realistic to update stuff.
Right. Right. Okay. Great. And obviously, since we touched on the Apple part, so obviously got the new M1 Pro Max and stuff like that. Have you seen him play with that? And obviously things like that is
the M1 Studio we have ordered. It's not yet come, so it's
Yeah.
ordered for him. So
Yeah.
I think it's still a 2-3 week wait.
Mm.
But yeah, all the new M1 laptops, he has a few and it's been around, so he's been working with them. He's
Right.
happy.
Right. So now that when you return back to India after this mission, accomplishing it, are you going to take a break, or you're going to go on a holiday,
No,
or
I have
go
to
back
finish
to
this. I have to finish this Andheri Studios. That's
right?
that
So
also
that's your
started
next
pre-pandemic.
right.
Yeah, it's almost finished, but it started pre-pandemic, and right now we need to really, kind of urgently finish that.
Mm.
That's my next, and then there are other projects where in design phase for other clients as well. I did have my family here in Dubai with me for a few months.
Yeah.
So once I go back, maybe with the family, I'll take a break. It's summer holidays soon,
Mm.
so I'll take a break, but I'm not. The work is there.
Wow.
When you run
I
a
love
business, there's no real holidays as such.
love the passion here, and I'm sure, as you know, Sir's passion for tech and his passion for music, obviously, and it has evolved a lot, as you know, and the technology has also evolved, and his team has evolved. How do you see his evolution? Because you've seen him right from the start of his journey, and still with him. God forbid, touch wood, you're always going to be there, no doubt. And I would love you to be there always. And how do you see his evolution? Because you've seen right from the start, and now to where you are right now, in that room.
I haven't worked from him right from the start. I started working with him 2001, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So that was already midway, I think, of his career. But I knew him as a person. much before, even before Roja. When I wouldn't say I knew him. He knew me because I was a little child. So, but I have seen him. I used to play video games with him when I was a kid, like when I was 5 years old and 6 years old and stuff like that. But from when I did start working with him to now, the evolution is quite stark in his personality, I think, because he is gone from a rather introverted person to a very embracing, extroverted. He speaks, he includes all of us in discussions, and it is definitely a different way of it's not. I think it was around that whole slumdog phase in his career where his personality kind of molded differently, and it's a nice way. He has a lot more peace and calm about him. He's been always patient, but now he's verbally patient. So yeah, it's nice to see him in this. In technology and technically, he's been always ahead. He's ahead of his time every time. He was ahead 10 years ago. He's ahead today. He always looks and seeks for the next things that we don't know. Most of the times he knows already. And and it's nice to chill out with him now and then. It's fun.
Right.
We go out for dinners. It's nice, basically. Yeah.
So have you gone out for dinners in Dubai with him?
Yeah, he has done a couple of team dinners, and sometimes we lunch him at his home. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. And then you also built his home studio, right? Here in
Dubai, yes. Dubai. I built his home studio in Dubai. Yeah.
Did he have certain I don't want to say vision because it's a home studio, but
there was no vision. There was only time.
Yeah.
It's like 3 நாள்ல முடிக்கணும். என்ன பண்ணு? நான் இந்தியால இருந்து வரேன். நீ 3 daysல முடிச்சிட்டு எனக்கு கொடு. So it was a 3-day studio. And
what do you do in 3 days?
Man, miracle. Only miracles.
It does look great, no doubt.
Villa, so we can't break walls and build walls and stuff. So we built these custom-made panels and then mounted them in a specific manner. And that's it. We mounted some panels to make it sound good. We made it look really good and installed all this equipment. All happened in 3 days.
Right. So you could actually, what I hear is you can make a studio out of any room. Am I right?
You can. Depends how. I mean, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for.
Correct.
So it's a different level, and if you accept that level, it's fine. Yes, you can.
Right. And obviously he'd have wanted certain colors and stuff because it's his home and personal studio, right?
Yeah. I don't have to ask him what colors anymore. I know. And so but he does like a few colors. He likes this particular shade of purple, if you can call it purple and violet. It's a kind of thing.
Correct.
So that even including Firdaus, we have it. I don't think you can see it right now, but there are spaces.
Right. And Firdaus Studio obviously has the golden boys there, right? So
all the awards are here. Yeah, all this Golden Globes, Oscar, Grammy, BAFTA, all they're showcased.
So it's always going to be there, or what?
No, I think it'll be here for 6 to 8 months or maybe a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And again, going back to my previous question, sorry. He has evolved as a person, his music has evolved, technology has evolved, and everything that he does has evolved. His team has also evolved. You've worked with various generations of team members too. Not that I'm trying to make you sound old or anything, but I'm just talking about people come and go, right? So how do you see that at that side of the evolution? with the sound that's produced today with don't want to say why the musical, let's go with Atrangire or the last few releases. What's your thoughts on that?
See, I think music itself, not just for Rahman, for everybody, music in general has evolved. People's listening requirements and expectations have evolved. People's tastes have evolved. So we are in a different, in the 1800s, there was classical music. Everybody enjoyed that. 80s, 70s, rock was a big thing. Then 90s pop came in. So music evolves at large. Just the same, his music is evolving. And I think keeping the soul of it, he is still able to reach today's audiences. And his team, his engineers are able to deliver that tonality that today's audiences prefer. And I think everybody is in with the time. It's just a different time than it was 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years back. And hence there's a different sound to it because people want different.
Indeed.
So yeah.
And in the podcast journey itself, as you know, it's been a magical journey, no doubt. But I do want to pick a couple of guests who came in and spoke very, very highly of you, and then they were in all smiles when they spoke about the soundtracks that they have worked on with Sir and with your involvement in it. And one of them, top of my list, is Mr. Rakesh Om Prakash. He mentioned your name so many times in the podcast and also off the record after the podcast recording as well. So anything that you would like to talk about with all the stuff that you've worked on in the past, like even for example Delhi 6 itself or Rang De Basanti, anything that you would like to share? Because of course I have heard Rakesh's perspective on things, but especially RDB, it's a crazy soundtrack, and we guys within the community still talk about it, and we still talk about the initial background piece that comes right at the start when the titles start rolling in, and then that's like we are madly fond of it. And then there's so much of hard work that's gone behind, like especially like yourselves who's behind the scenes. What memories would you like to share?
An interesting fact is some of the sound engineers working at Firdaus actually use RDB as a reference track without having realized that I was part of that journey. So, when we were tuning this room and calibrating this room, one of the engineers came in and I asked him, "What do you want to listen to?" He said, "Rang De Basanti." And I said, "Okay, great, put it on." I didn't say anything. And then we played it through, and he was quite impressed with the sound. And then I told him I was part of this journey. I was one of the engineers on. He was like, "Wow, it's you!" And so it's still alive in people's hearts and minds. And to me, it's quite. As engineers or as a composer, once we live through a particular song for a long time, say a year, 2 years, while it's in the making, we have completed our enjoying of it mostly. Of course, there are times when we re-listen to it, but not as frequently as most of the audience would who have not been a part of the making. So it's always pleasantly surprising when we hear the stuff that we worked on in the past and it's still alive with people. So, music is quite something that transcends time. As I said before, music from the 1800s, Bach and Mozart and everything is basically, 200 plus years old and still is the foundation of most music today. So it's pretty cool that way. And as far as memories, man, there's just
which one can you pick?
too many memories. Recently, because why the musical was happening here.
Yeah.
I was frequently bumping into Mr. Shekhar Kapoor, and he would always Mr. Rahman and Shekhar Kapoor shared a flat in London, an apartment. They were roommates or flatmates. And I used to live in that flat whenever I used to go with boss to London. So we were reminiscing those days, how times were in that apartment. And
share some of those memories, like maybe one that comes to your mind. London memory with Shekhar Kapoor ji and Sir and yourself. If possible.
I think no, not it's. I can't share it here. I'll share it with you personally.
Okay, I think a lot of fans are going to bombard me asking me, okay, what was that memory?
We'll next time 3.2.
and you've obviously worked on a number of soundtracks, Adi, and I love it. And what are the soundtracks or the soundtrack that you feel very proud about, and which comes to your mind, okay, this is my work, and this is my best, rather, that's your pre-studio design phase?
Two of the albums that I've worked on that I consider very special is Boys and Meenakshi.
Wow.
These two albums are dear to me amongst the ones that I worked on with AR. So magical days, both working on both these films. I hold them close to heart. We actually released, not many people know this, but maybe you do because you're a super fan. We released a surround version of Boys, a 5.1 DTS version of Boys, and it was unheard of back at that time to do a surround music CD. And Sridhar conceptualized it, and he and I mixed it. It was quite unique and new to this whole industry, and there was a limited run of those copies. I have one CD with me, but I think if you have a CD of that, I think it's gold.
It's there back in Bangalore, yes.
Yeah. So yeah. That was fun, creating that whole
nice
surround music, which is only now coming to.
Correct.
Boys was in 2000, I don't know, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And we are in 22, where just now surround music is becoming a thing.
True.
But we made it back then, and with the limited technology we had, and it's quite amazing.
Wow. And you obviously, as part of the evolution as well, right? You're getting to see so many musicians who are emerging, and with the sound that's being produced in the current world that we are in, aside from Sir's music, what's your thoughts on that one? Non-ARR music in general.
A lot of great music happening.
It's like sounding like a very politically correct answer.
No. I think people, they're making amazing music, man. Indians, non-Indians, Sri Lankans, Americans. There's so much of talent now, and it's sometimes overwhelming. You are not able to listen to all the music because the content. Before, you in the 80s and 90s, everybody would know an album is released worldwide. Today, it's hard to keep track. If you go through Spotify, if you go through iTunes, Apple Music, and the various title, and then people are releasing on different services, on Insta, on YouTube. It's immense. This content generation hunger has become such a big deal. Every artist is releasing content of their own, and honestly, it's overwhelming, the amount of content we have.
Yeah.
But it's nobody's fault. It's just the way the social media has changed music and the scene. People are now not nowadays, for some time they WhatsApp you their new release. They send you a link every day. A singer or the others WhatsApping, hey, guess, listen to this today and listen to this tomorrow. But sometimes it is overwhelming. It's almost fatiguing to be able to grasp the amount of content that's out there, and a lot of it is good. Definitely a lot of it is good, but you have to, coming, as a 40-year-old guy,
You don't
the
look
way
like
we
that.
consume the way I consume music is different from the way 20-year-olds consume music today. I still like playlist of the songs that I like, and keep it there, and go through that playlist instead of keep hitting a new song each time and then trying to learn a new song. I do it, but I somehow always go back to stuff that I grew up with.
Right. And does that playlist obviously have some of the songs that you have worked on?
Very less.
Okay.
As I said, we
Is that
finished
consciously or
our
what?
journey. Huh?
Is that consciously or what?
Yeah, no, not consciously, but I think we finished our journey when we worked on a song with that song.
Oh wow.
We are satiated with it. We may listen to it when others are listening to it, but myself, it would not be my first choice because I've lived through that journey already. And
True.
it's the case with even films where we do the background score, and once you finish the score, working on the score of a film, it's very difficult to watch that film again because you've done with it. Yeah, you lived with it. So.
Yeah. And lastly, your thoughts on the audience's attention span shortening with music, with content, or anything for that matter, and then the short form content booming, and with this reels and whatnot going viral, and for example, a track that might have been worked on for months and months would probably get, I'm just saying as an example, 500k views at the least over a few months, and something that's just been done over 4 hours is an instant hit and has done millions. So what's your thoughts on that aspect of the evolution?
As I said, it's a generation thing. It's a new generation thing. The kids of today, under 20-year-olds of today, are consuming media in a completely different way. It's all about 10-second reels, and that's all. They're happy with that, and you can't believe the kind of, no disrespect, but like you said, the kind of music that does get these views is quite surprising. And so it doesn't always have to do with musicality. I think it just has to grab your attention. It has to be catchy. It has to be unique. Uniqueness is a big factor of why things work today.
Correct.
So if it's really fresh for whatever reason, it clicks. And so there's talent who know how these things work, and they capitalize on that, which is fine. It's if we speak to our great grandfathers or grandfathers, they'll be wondering, oh, why do you have this CD, and what is a CD, and what is this MP3? Likewise, now again, as a 40-year-old, I feel the new age will find the normal TikTok and this as a thing, but I wouldn't. I'd rather listen to traditional music. Right. My studio in Chennai, I actually have a tape machine that plays analog reel-to-reel tape.
Oh wow!
Makes me sound like a 75-year-old, but I love that stuff still. So
so good. Has Sir shared any views about with the short form content booming and things like that at all? Just out of curiosity. Or the current.
He may have made casual comments, but I'm not able to.
Right.
Not able to pick on anyone right now, but
yeah.
No, cool. I don't.
No, all good. And coming towards the end of the podcast, Adi, and I just basically, I feel very grateful for the fact that I'm able to get a glimpse of the studio via this podcast and via your kindness. Thank you so much for that, and then also sharing the journey that you have had in terms of building something as cool as this. I really hope one day I get to visit. I really hope that really
Please do come.
happens.
Please do come. I think it's a space that everybody should visit.
For sure.
It's a space that's open for any musician, any artist that wants to record here.
Yeah.
So I just want to put this message out there. It's made for all of you, everyone. Please do visit. Please take a tour, book the space, enjoy it. That's the only way it can grow and remain relevant.
Indeed.
Additional benefit of having of using the studio is there's the Firdaus Orchestra, which is an all women's orchestra.
Yeah.
It's a very statement piece for this generation, for this region, to have an all women's orchestra, and that's something Mr. Rahman's pioneered here. So it's really cool. Those girls are amazing. They're great players, and so let's check it out.
Yeah. And you said one of the rooms can also actually watch a movie and stuff, right? So can fans actually come in there, book in that room, and then watch a movie together? Is that even an option?
I don't see why not. They could. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Because I know the Dubai fans could always catch up and come together to watch a movie in Firdaus Studio by A.R.Rahman.
Possible.
Right.
Definitely possible. Let the expo get over, and then we're planning various events post expo.
Oh wow!
And as a part of that, we can discuss this.
Beautiful. Yeah, you should. Yeah, please do. And Adi, just lastly, it's just a random question. Has Sir spoken about me or my journey at all at any point? Just out of curiosity, again, I know he's a man of very few words, or even as a passing comment. I know he did on the phone call when he called during.
No, not to me. Not since then. Not to me at least. I'm sure he's spoken, but not to me.
I was just curious. That's all. Adi, is there anything else you would like to touch on before I let you go? Any other topic or anything that I may not have touched on, or even topic that you would have loved to talk about?
No, I just want to say that it's the same thing. I'm going to repeat myself that this Firdaus by A.R.Rahman, the studio at the Expo 2020 currently in Dubai, is going to remain forever. It's going to be a legacy building. Those watching this and are musicians, are creators, and would like to use this facility, do reach out to us. We'll have a website up soon. And come and check the space out.
Nice. And I really hope I get to do it one day. And lastly, what is Sir up to today? What is he doing? He's at home, or is he coming to the studio?
He's at home. He was here for the last 2 days. He was recording a private album. I can't say for whom right now, but he was recording some album the last 2 days.
Okay.
And today I think he's at home.
And he is usually working even when he's at home in his home studio.
He's always working. We're expecting to have Yuvan Shankar Raja visit the studio tomorrow.
Okay.
And he'll be here for that.
Right.
Studio.
And can I please request you to also pose in the picture when he visits?
Yeah, you know me. I rarely ask those opportunities, but if I do, let's see.
Yeah. Cool. Adi, my buddy, thank you so much, man.
Thank you,
I'm going to cherish this. Really going to cherish this memory, and you've been extremely kind enough and very supportive in my journey. So I just want to say a big thank you from the bottom of my heart, not just for this podcast, but for everything that I don't even have to tell you.
Thank you, and keep doing this as long as you can.
Thank you so much. And anything you would like to say to all the fans in the community who absolutely love you, and they still talk about your podcast 1.0 podcast, obviously, and then particularly one segment of that, which is the airport part, and it keeps coming back again back again, back and forth, right? Again, what am I trying to say? And they obviously have very, very high regards for you in the community. Anything that you want to, a message for them, or could be anything?
Dream big, achieve bigger. Rahman has a funny way of putting it. He says, aim for the sky and at least get the roof. So yeah, plan big, do, and love what you do, passionately be at it, don't give up.
Nice.
And that's it. Keep listening to music, forget all this war, and try to think about positivity and
Yeah,
keep all the other nonsense out of out of our minds.
nicely said, indeed. Dude, thank you so much, man.
Thanks.
And I enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you heaps.
Okay,
I'm so very looking forward to releasing this.
All right, man. Thank you.